Good evening, and welcome to Late Night Science. Tonight, we step into a quiet corner of thought, where science and wonder lean close together like old companions. Our journey begins with a question that has echoed through centuries of human imagination. Is time a straight path that stretches endlessly forward, or is it a circle curving back upon itself, forever repeating? Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? Some of you may be drifting off beneath city lights, others surrounded by the silence of rural fields, or perhaps oceans away in another time zone where the day is still awake. Wherever you are, take a breath, settle in, and allow this space to become your calm companion. And if this kind of late-night exploration speaks to you, I invite you gently, without urgency, to like and subscribe so that you can return to this sanctuary of thought whenever you need it. Now, let us close our eyes, at least in spirit, and listen to the rhythm of the world around us, the cycle of breath in and out, the heartbeat steady and pulsing, the rising of the sun, the falling of night, the slow return of seasons, each giving way to the other in patterns older than memory. From the very first moments that human beings looked upward to the stars, we have seen the world not as a line, but as a circle. The moon vanishes only to return. Winter strips the trees bare, and yet spring restores them. The fields lie empty and then are full again. Life itself seems to lean toward the shape of return, as though the universe whispers, "What has been will be again." It is not surprising that ancient minds found comfort in these patterns. To live is to notice repetition. To be awake in the world is to feel how things come back. And so they imagined time itself as circular, unending, a wheel that carries us not towards something new, but back to what has always been. The circle became sacred, the truest symbol of eternity. Temples were built upon it, rituals repeated it, calendars carved it into stone. And perhaps even now, in the quiet of your own night, you feel the pull of that idea, that time may not be rushing you forward towards some unknown ending, but gently returning you to something already familiar. Yet science, as it emerged, told a different story. It spoke of clocks, not circles. It measured seconds as if they were stepping stones leading forward, never back. Time became linear, directional, an arrow shot from a bow. The great revolutions of physics in the modern age suggested that there is a beginning, a fiery birth called the Big Bang, and from that singular spark, the arrow of time has carried us further and further into expansion. For centuries now, much of science has preferred this arrow over the circle, and still, the circle has never left us. We see it in the heavens, in the turning of galaxies like slow spirals of fire. We see it in the oceans, tides drawn endlessly back by the pull of the moon. We see it in ourselves, cells dividing, generations rising and falling, histories repeating in patterns of war and peace, hope and despair. Even when physics describes time as linear, the lived world seems to remind us of cycles we cannot ignore. The contradiction is gentle, but it lingers. This is where curiosity begins. For if the universe appears both linear and circular, if it tells us two stories at once, then perhaps the truth is larger than either alone. Perhaps time is not only an arrow or only a circle, but some deeper form that embraces both, the way a spiral can be both forward-moving and repeating at once. Endlessly looping, but never in quite the same place. And so we arrive at tonight's meditation. Imagine for a moment that the universe is a loop. Not just the days and seasons, not just the birth and death of stars, but the very fabric of existence itself, looping back, repeating endlessly. Would you recognize it? Would you sense the moment when time closes its circle and begins again? Or would everything feel as fresh, as unfamiliar, as it did the first time? There is a strange comfort in imagining this. If time is a loop, then nothing is ever truly lost. What vanishes must return. What ends must begin again. Loved ones gone would be born anew, every story retold, every gesture repeated. Life, in all its fleetingness, would secretly be eternal. Yet there is also unease. If everything repeats, then perhaps there is no escape. The mistakes of history, the griefs of our lives, the errors we carry, would return again and again like shadows we cannot outrun. You drift between these two feelings, comfort and unease, and you realize that both are part of the same circle. That is the paradox of cycles. They give us peace by assuring us that nothing is lost, yet they bind us with the thought that nothing can truly change. The mind quiets in this contradiction, resting in the possibility that time may be more mysterious than either hope or fear can name. Tonight, as you listen, you are not asked to believe or disbelieve. You are simply invited to imagine, to lean into the rhythm of the circle, to feel its presence in your breath, in the beating of your heart, in the slow return of the stars that rise again in skies older than memory. To live in this moment as though the universe itself is caught in a cycle without end. And as you drift with that thought, notice how gently it carries you. A circle has no edge, no boundary, no abrupt stop. It is endless, seamless, smooth. To imagine time as a circle is to imagine it as something that holds you softly, without beginning and without end, like an ocean current that never ceases. You are not hurled forward into the unknown, nor left behind in what has passed. You are simply moving, always returning, always belonging to the pattern. But if this is true, another question arises. What lies at the center of this circle? Every loop has a still point, a place untouched by motion, a silent middle around which everything turns. Is there such a center in time itself? And if so, what rests there, waiting, unmoved, unchanging? Perhaps it is the origin of the universe. Perhaps it is something beyond the reach of science, a mystery that cannot be measured. Or perhaps it is closer than that. Perhaps the center of time is the stillness within you, the quiet awareness that watches the circle turn. The thought lingers, soft and unresolved as we prepare to journey further. For tonight is only beginning and the circle is vast. We have touched the intuition of ancient minds who saw the world in cycles. But what did those first maps of eternity truly look like? How did humanity draw the shapes of time before science measured them? And how much of their vision still speaks to us even now? When we close our eyes and imagine the shape of time, we are not the first to wonder. Long before telescopes traced the stars with mathematics, long before physicists bent equations to describe the cosmos, human beings drew maps of eternity with myth and story. These early visions may not have been written on paper, but they were carved into ritual, spoken through chants, and painted across the walls of temples. And always, in these ancient visions, time was not a line, but a circle. Consider the cosmologies of India, where the universe does not begin once, but endlessly renews itself in cycles called kalpas. A kalpa stretches for billions of years, so vast that it dwarfs the rise and fall of civilizations. Each one unfolds as a cosmic day in the life of Brahma, the creator god, whose breathing in and breathing out gives rise to worlds and then gathers them back. Imagine that, existence itself as the rhythm of divine breath, expanding outward, contracting inward, like lungs filling and emptying across eternity. It is a vision both intimate and infinite, for who among us does not feel the cycle of breath as the most constant rhythm of life? Travel westward, and the ancient Greeks too spoke of cycles. The Stoics, contemplative and austere, believed in eternal recurrence, that everything repeats, not just once, but endlessly. The stars that you see tonight have burned before will burn again, and so will you. Every choice, every conversation, every fleeting moment will happen once more, not in memory or metaphor, but in literal return. For them, the universe itself was a great fire that consumes all things, only to ignite again, recreating the world exactly as it was. Imagine the weight of such a belief, your life not as a single story moving forward, but as a verse sung again and again in an endless chorus. Beyond Greece, in ancient Egypt, time was pictured as two intertwined flows. One was linear, moving with history and the reign of kings. The other was cyclical, tied to the sun rising over the Nile each morning and sinking each evening beneath the western horizon. The scarab beetle pushing its ball of earth became the symbol of this eternal return, reminding Egyptians that life is carried forward by cycles too vast to escape. The river flooded and receded, the harvest came and went, and in that rhythm they saw echoes of cosmic order. The Norse imagined something similar in the great myth of Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. There, even the end of the world was not final, but part of a repeating cycle. The cosmos would burn, collapse, and then renew itself, reborn in purity, green fields rising once more where ashes had been. The idea that destruction could also be renewal is a deep chord struck across many cultures, a reassurance that endings are never absolute, that even in collapse, life prepares itself for return. Across oceans, in the Americas, the Mayans constructed calendars of extraordinary precision, calendars that traced not only the passing of days, but the cycles of eras. For them, time itself was woven in repeating patterns, and human history played out in rhythmic harmony with the stars. Civilizations were born and dissolved just as suns rose and fell. In their vision, to live was to be part of a repeating song of creation. It is striking how cultures separated by oceans and centuries all return to this image of cycles. They did not know one another, they did not share their myths directly, yet the idea kept arising that time turns back, that eternity is a wheel. Why? Perhaps because everywhere they looked, the natural world revealed its looping rhythms. Night returning after day, winter after summer, birth after death. It was as if the universe itself was teaching them, through pattern and repetition, that time is not linear but curved, and even now, though we dress our world in scientific certainty, these old visions still whisper to us. You can hear them when you trace the seasons, when you see a child resembling a grandparent long gone, when you feel that sense of déjà vu, that uncanny impression of having lived this moment before. Whether or not time truly loops, the imagination of eternity has always curved back upon itself. But here lies a tension. The circular visions of myth comfort us by promising that nothing is ever lost, that death is never the end. Yet they also unsettle us by suggesting that freedom itself may be an illusion. If everything repeats, then every choice is already written, and you are destined to live it again without escape. The ancients wrestled with this just as we do. For some, like the Stoics, eternal recurrence was a challenge. Live so well that you would gladly repeat your life forever. For others, cycles meant surrender. Accept that what returns cannot be resisted, that to live is to yield to patterns greater than yourself. As we drift through these first maps of eternity, it is not their literal truth that matters most, but their invitation. They ask us to imagine time not as a line rushing toward an unknown end, but as something that curves back, holds us, enfolds us. They remind us that to exist is to participate in rhythms larger than our own brief years. And they prepare us, gently, for the possibility that science too may yet return to this vision, though in language and symbols far different than myth. For if the ancients saw eternity in circles, then what does modern science see? Does physics, with all its precision and instruments, still allow for time to curve, to return, and to loop? Or has the arrow of time broken away from these ancient wheels forever? When you hold an arrow in your hand, you can feel its shape, one end sharpened into a point, the other fletched with feathers to guide its flight. It has direction, a clear path forward. Physics has given time a similar image, an arrow. It points from the past into the future, never in reverse, always in motion. Yet, if we pause and ask what gives this arrow its meaning, the answer is more subtle than the image suggests. Look closely at the world around you. You drop a cup, and it shatters into pieces. You watch smoke rise from a candle and disperse into the air. You see ice melt into water, never water, unmelting into ice on its own. These are ordinary experiences, yet they reveal something profound. Things tend to move from order into disorder, from neatness into scattering, from structure into chaos. This tendency has a name, entropy, and it is entropy that gives the arrow of time its forward motion. Entropy is the measure of disorder, the natural inclination of systems to spread out, to even themselves to lose distinction. In the language of thermodynamics, it is the second law. In an isolated system, entropy always increases. This means that time flows in the direction of rising disorder. It is why we remember the past but not the future, why we see glasses break but never spontaneously reassemble, why history feels like a march forward rather than a circle turning back. The arrow of time is, in essence, the arrow of entropy. But entropy is not just a cold equation. It is also a metaphor, a way of seeing the world. Imagine a library in perfect order, every book in place. Leave it untouched long enough, and dust gathers, pages bend, the arrangement falters. Or think of a sandcastle on a beach, built with care, but soon undone by tide and wind. Entropy is not destruction, but dispersal. It is the universe's tendency to mix, to blur, to spread energy into every available corner, and yet, within this truth, another mystery lingers. For if entropy is always rising, then the universe must have begun in a state of astonishing order. At the Big Bang, matter and energy were condensed in a way so improbably neat that it remains one of physics' greatest puzzles. Why did the universe begin in such a low entropy state? It is as though the arrow of time was drawn back on a bowstring, perfectly aligned, and released to fly. But who or what set the bow? Why did the cosmos begin so ordered, only to unravel into disorder? Here the arrow begins to bend, at least in our imagination. For if entropy drives time forward, what would it mean for entropy to reset? Could there be a moment, perhaps at the end of the universe, when all that dispersal collapses, when the arrow curves back into a circle? The laws of thermodynamics do not encourage such hope, and yet cosmologists still debate. Some suggest that gravity, the great gatherer, could someday pull the scattered pieces back together, not into neatness but into collapse, an end that may look like a beginning. The paradox deepens when we consider life. For life seems to resist entropy, at least locally. A living cell builds order from raw materials, arranging molecules into patterns that sustain themselves. A human mind remembers, imagines, creates. Within the grand swell of rising disorder, life generates islands of structure. But these islands are temporary, and their very existence depends on the larger sea of entropy surrounding them. A flame burns brightly only because it consumes fuel, increasing entropy overall. So too do living beings create order in their own small spaces while contributing to the universe's wider drift toward chaos. And so the arrow of time is not absolute in every corner, but relative, contextual dependent. On the microscopic scale, the laws of physics look symmetrical, as though time could run forward or backward with equal ease. At the level of atoms, nothing insists on direction. It is only when vast numbers of particles interact, when the collective behavior of matter asserts itself, that entropy emerges and time becomes directional. The arrow, it seems, is not carved into the stone of nature, but drawn out of the dance of countless tiny players. This realization is both unsettling and freeing. Unsettling because it suggests that the arrow of time is not a universal necessity, but a feature of scale and perspective. Freeing because it opens the door to possibility. If time's arrow emerges only under certain conditions, then perhaps there are conditions in which it bends, reverses, or disappears. Perhaps deep within black holes or across the unimaginable span of cosmic cycles, time is not linear at all, and yet we live by the arrow. You feel it in your body aging with every breath. You feel it in memory, which always looks backward but never forward. You feel it in history, which records what has been, not what will be. The arrow may be a construct, an emergent property, a statistical truth, but it is also our reality. To be human is to be carried by it, to look always ahead, to wonder if what is lost might ever return. There is a quiet sadness in the arrow, for it reminds us that all things move toward dispersal. But there is beauty too. Entropy makes sunsets possible, scattering light across the horizon. Entropy makes warmth flow, allowing life to exist. Entropy gives time its forward music, its unfolding story. Without the arrow, there would be no narrative, no sense of beginning and end, no contrast between what has passed and what is to come. The arrow is both burden and gift, and so we are left with a paradox, the kind that lingers softly in the mind. Time feels linear, but is it truly? The arrow feels absolute, but is it only local? Entropy points forward, yet the universe began with extraordinary order, as though preparing itself for a future that is still unfolding. Perhaps the arrow is not as rigid as we think. Perhaps in the vast scales of cosmology it will one day bend, for if an arrow can fly forward, might it not also arc in the air, curve, and return to Earth? If time is an arrow, is it one that travels endlessly outward, or one that, unseen to us, will one day find its way back? If you could listen carefully enough, if your ears could attune themselves not just to the sounds of the Earth, but to the vibrations of the universe itself, you would hear a faint hiss, a quiet static, spread evenly across the sky. Astronomers call it the cosmic microwave background, but you may think of it as a whisper from the beginning of time. It is the afterglow of the Big Bang, the lingering warmth of a universe that was once unimaginably hot and dense, now stretched and cooled into a pale residue of light. This radiation is everywhere. It comes to you no matter which direction you turn. Aim a radio telescope at the heavens and it will bathe in the faint signal. Even the old televisions of the last century carried a trace of it as static noise, a ghostly reminder that your living room was quietly touched by the birth of the cosmos. The universe remembers its beginning, and that memory hums invisibly around us. Yet what is a beginning but also the echo of an end? When we call the cosmic microwave background a fossil, we imply finality, but we also suggest continuity. Fossils are traces of lives long gone, yet they are also signs that life has cycled, persisted, returned. In the same way, this cosmic whisper may be more than just a relic of one birth. It may be the residue of countless births, countless endings, countless universes folding into one another like breaths. Astronomers describe the radiation with precision. Its temperature is a near-perfect 2.7 Kelvin above absolute zero. Its distribution is astonishingly uniform, like a canvas stretched smooth across the heavens with only the faintest ripples. These ripples, though delicate, are profound. They are the seeds of galaxies, the first imprints of structure in a young universe. Out of those tiny fluctuations, stars, planets, and eventually life emerged. To gaze upon the microwave background is to see the embryo of everything we know. But here lies the wonder, why is it so even? Why is the universe, at its earliest visible moment, so smooth, so balanced, so improbably ordered? This question has driven cosmologists to theories that stretch imagination itself. Inflation theory proposes that in the first sliver of a second, the universe expanded faster than the speed of light, ironing out irregularities and leaving behind the uniform glow we now detect. Yet inflation, for all its elegance, raises another question. What caused it? What existed before, if before can even be said to exist? And here the circle reappears. For if this radiation is the echo of a beginning, might it also be the echo of countless beginnings before it? Could what we call the Big Bang be only one, in a chain of expansions and contractions, one cycle in a loop of universes birthing themselves out of collapse. The cosmic microwave background may not be the memory of a singular birth, but the layered resonance of many, like voices overlapping across eternity. Imagine striking a bell in a vast cathedral. The note reverberates, fading, yet if you strike again, the echoes mingle, creating a resonance that carries longer than any single tone. Perhaps the universe is like that bell, ringing not once but endlessly, each strike giving rise to a new expansion, each fading echo leaving behind a background radiation that merges with the last. What we hear as a single whisper may be the harmony of many, indistinguishable yet layered, telling us quietly that time itself has looped. Some cosmologists have dared to suggest such things. Theories of a cyclic universe, whether through eternal inflation, bouncing cosmologies, or conformal cyclic models, hint that what we see as origin may also be repetition. The microwave background, then, would not be the echo of one birth, but the palimpsest of many, written over and over on the same cosmic canvas. In this view, the question is no longer what came before the Big Bang, but how many times has the universe breathed itself into being. Yet even as science leans into speculation, the imagery remains poetic. The cosmic microwave background is not bright, not dazzling. It is faint, almost imperceptible, as if the universe does not wish to overwhelm us, but simply to remind us. Like a lullaby hummed softly, it reassures us that we are children of an ancient rhythm. Close your eyes and imagine it is to feel that the very air around you carries the memory of beginnings too vast to name. And here we face another paradox. The microwave background suggests both intimacy and distance. Intimacy because it is literally everywhere, filling every corner of the sky, bathing your body even now. Distance because it comes from a time nearly 14 billion years ago, from horizons so far away that light has only just reached us. It is the most ancient light we can see, yet it touches us in the present. You, sitting here, are bathed in the same glow that surrounded the first galaxies. You are living within the echo of the universe's earliest song. But if this glow is so constant, so ever-present, why do we not feel it more directly? Perhaps because it is too quiet, too steady. Our senses notice change, contrast, motion. The microwave background is instead the perfect silence between notes, the steady rhythm beneath the melody. It is the universe's bass line, its persistent hum, always there, rarely heard. Tonight, as you drift with this thought, imagine that every breath you take is filled with particles of that ancient radiation. Imagine that within your room, within your very skin, is the soft afterglow of creation. And then imagine that this glow may not only be the first, but one of many, that somewhere beyond our reach, the universe has looped, collapsed, begun again, each cycle leaving its own whisper. If this is true, then you are not only living in the first echo, but in the thousandth, the millionth, the echo of echoes. The thought lingers like the static between radio stations, quiet, persistent, impossible to erase. The universe hums with memory, but is it memory of a singular beginning or the layered recollection of countless eternities? We cannot yet know. We can only listen and wonder and allow the soundless music of the cosmos to carry us further. And as we move forward, another question begins to rise. If the echo is a memory of beginnings, what of the endings? If the universe was born in fire, will it also end in fire, only to be born again? Or does the arrow of time carry us toward a final silence from which no echo returns? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the universe at its very beginning. Not stars, not galaxies, not even atoms, just a searing point of unimaginable density and heat, smaller than anything we can picture, and yet containing everything that would ever exist. This is the story science tells us of the Big Bang, not an explosion in space, but the sudden expansion of space itself, time unfolding from zero, the fabric of reality stretching like a newborn breath. In that first fraction of a second, the cosmos expanded faster than the speed of light, growing from smaller than an atom to larger than a galaxy. Temperatures cooled just enough for the first particles to form. Within minutes, protons and neutrons began to weave themselves into light elements: hydrogen, helium, traces of lithium, the building blocks of stars to come. The universe was not yet luminous, but already the stage was being set for brilliance. Hundreds of millions of years later, the first stars ignited. Galaxies began to gather, cosmic webs stretched across the darkness, and eventually planets and life emerged. All of this, our homes, our histories, our very thoughts, are children of that single beginning. The Big Bang is not only a scientific model, it is a cosmic origin story, a modern myth told with equations instead of poetry, but no less wondrous for it. And yet, for all its grandeur, it is also a mystery. We do not know what came before. Was there a true beginning, a sudden creation out of nothing? Or was it a continuation of something older, something hidden? If the universe began once, could it not begin again? This is where gravity enters the story. For just as the Big Bang describes expansion, gravity describes return. Every star, every planet, every cluster of galaxies pulls on every other. And so the question arises, will this expansion continue forever, or will the universe one day yield to gravity's quiet insistence and begin to contract? If it does, cosmologists imagine a scenario called the Big Crunch. Over unimaginable spans of time, galaxies would cease moving apart and begin to draw back together. The night sky would grow brighter as galaxies crowded closer. Temperatures would rise, stars would burn more fiercely, and eventually everything, space, time, matter, would collapse inward, back into a singularity of fire and density. In that moment, the end and the beginning would touch. The Great Return. And here lies the haunting possibility. If the universe could collapse back to a singularity, what would prevent it from exploding outward once again? Perhaps the Big Bang was not a unique event, but part of an eternal rhythm, the universe inhaling and exhaling across the ages, breathing itself into existence again and again. Imagine a pendulum swinging back and forth, never ceasing. Expansion, contraction, expansion again. Or imagine a heartbeat, the cosmos pulsing, each beat a new universe born out of the last. To live within such a universe would be to live not at the beginning nor the end, but in the middle of an eternal cycle. Our existence would not be a solitary chance, but one verse in a poem that never stops repeating. This vision of a cyclic cosmos has captivated thinkers for millennia. The Stoics imagined a universe consumed in fire, only to rise again. Hindu cosmology speaks of kalpas, vast cycles of creation and dissolution. And modern cosmologists, though armed with telescopes and equations, sometimes find themselves echoing these ancient intuitions. Could the Big Crunch give rise to another Big Bang? The beauty of the idea lies in its symmetry. For if the universe expands without end, it may seem to drift toward emptiness. Stars burn out, galaxies fade, everything cools into a quiet darkness. But if collapse is possible, then death is not final, it is simply transition. The end of one universe is the seed of the next. The Great Return is not annihilation but renewal, still the science is uncertain. Observations today suggest that expansion is not slowing but accelerating, driven by the mysterious force we call dark energy. If dark energy continues unchecked, the universe may never return, it may stretch forever, growing colder and lonelier with each passing eon. But even here the question lingers, do we truly understand what dark energy is? Could it shift, weaken, or reverse its effect over incomprehensible timescales? In the vast theatre of the cosmos, certainty is rare, and so we are left between two visions, one of eternal expansion into silence, the other of collapse into renewal. One offers a story of gradual fading, the other of endless rebirth. Both are humbling, both stretch our imagination, and both remind us that the universe is far larger than our ability to comprehend. As you sit with this thought, notice how your own breath mirrors the cosmos. Inhale, expansion. Exhale, return. A rhythm older than your body, older than humanity, perhaps older than the stars themselves. The possibility that the universe follows this same rhythm is both comforting and profound. It suggests that even on the grandest scale, life and death are not opposites, but companions, each leading into the other. Picture the final moments of a contracting universe. Galaxies racing inward, their light crowding the sky into brilliance. Stars colliding, worlds unraveling, atoms dissolving. Heat rising beyond measure until all of existence collapses into a single point of unimaginable density. And then silence. A silence so complete it contains everything, and from that silence, a spark. The beginning again. Expansion, cooling stars, galaxies, life. Perhaps even you, though not as you know yourself now, but as rearranged stardust in another cycle, another chapter of eternity. The Big Bang may not be a single note played once long ago, but a recurring theme in the cosmic symphony, played over and over, each time with new variations, each time giving birth to new melodies. We may be living in the middle of one such performance, unaware of how many came before, or how many will follow, and so as the night deepens, let this thought rest in you that the universe itself may be a circle without end, a story that tells itself again and again, that the fire which gave us birth may one day consume us, only to release us once more into the vastness of creation. The Big Bang and the Great Return are not opposites, but partners, two sides of a single rhythm. To wonder if the universe will collapse is not to dread an ending, but to consider the possibility of eternal renewal. And in that vision there is both mystery and comfort, for if the cosmos breathes, then we too are part of that breath. Our lives, our struggles, our fleeting joys are woven into the great inhale and exhale of existence. And the question that lingers quietly but persistently is this: when the universe returns, will it remember? Will some trace of us, some echo of our story carry into the next cycle? When we look at the night sky, it seems as if the stars are timeless, fixed points in an eternal darkness. But this is an illusion born of distance. In truth, stars are not eternal at all. They are alive with their own cycles of birth, growth, decline, and death. They are storytellers written in fire, and each story is a thread woven into the greater tapestry of the cosmos. Every star begins in a cloud of dust and gas. These vast nebulae drift silently through galaxies, cold and formless until gravity begins to gather them together. Over thousands, then millions of years, atoms fall inward, clumping, pressing, heating. The cloud condenses, its heart glowing brighter, until suddenly a new star blazes into being. It is the quiet ignition of hydrogen into helium, fusion lighting the furnace of creation. A sun is born. From that moment, the star enters a long, steady life. Like a steady flame on a candle, it burns its fuel in balance, radiating warmth and light across the darkness. Around such stars, planets may form. On one such planet, life itself may awaken. For billions of years, the star sustains this balance, appearing constant to any creature who gazes up at it. But inside, change is always underway. The fuel that powers it slowly depletes, and with time, the balance tips. For smaller stars, like our own sun, the end is gentle. Their hydrogen dwindles, and they swell into red giants, vast and luminous. Then, with a final sigh, they shed their outer layers into space, leaving behind a dense, white ember, a white dwarf. The discarded gas becomes a glowing planetary nebula, a cosmic bloom that drifts and fades, its beauty lasting only a moment in galactic time. For larger stars, the ending is far more dramatic. Their cores collapse in an instant, and the outer layers are hurled into space in a supernova. For a few brilliant weeks, the star outshines entire galaxies. It is death by fire, but it is also an act of generosity, because the explosion scatters the heavy elements forged in its furnace, carbon, oxygen, iron, gold, into the cosmos. These ashes of stars will one day form new stars, new planets, and perhaps even new life. You, listening now, carry in your body the evidence of these cycles. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen you breathe, all were once created in the heart of a star that lived and died billions of years ago. You are, quite literally, stardust woven into consciousness. The universe recycles itself not in theory, but in your very being. This cycle of stars, birth, life, death, and rebirth mirrors the possibility of the universe itself cycling endlessly. Just as one star's death gives rise to another's birth, so too might the collapse of one cosmos spark the ignition of another. The small reflects the great, and the great echoes in the small. The rhythm of matter is the rhythm of the universe. There is also beauty in the balance of time these cycles create. Consider this. The stars that formed our solar system were themselves born from the ashes of earlier stars. We are the grandchildren of supernovae, and one day, long after we are gone, our sun's remains will drift into space, seeding the next generation of stars. In this sense, immortality is not a promise of individual survival, but a truth written into the matter itself. Nothing is wasted, everything returns. Astronomers often describe galaxies as star factories. Within their spiraling arms, clouds collapse, stars ignite, stars die, and the process begins again. Even black holes, those cosmic abysses, participate. When massive stars collapse into them, the surrounding chaos can trigger the formation of new stars nearby. Death, in the universe, is never the final word. It is always part of a larger dialogue. And what does this tell us about the cosmos as a whole? It whispers that cycles are not just possibilities, they are fundamental patterns. The Earth cycles through days and nights, seasons and years. Life cycles through generations. Stars cycle through births and deaths. Everywhere we look, time does not move simply forward. It curves back, it repeats, it renews. The universe seems to favor circles, not lines. When you sit beneath the night sky, it is easy to feel small before such grandeur. And yet, this smallness is not insignificance. It is intimacy. The stars above are not distant strangers. They are kin. Their deaths have given you life. Their future deaths may one day seed beings who will look at the sky and wonder the same thoughts you wonder now. This is the quiet promise of cycles, that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. So if the stars recycle themselves endlessly, why not the universe itself? Could the Big Bang have been the cosmic equivalent of a supernova, scattering existence outward, only to one day collapse and ignite anew? Just as the ashes of stars give rise to new suns, perhaps the ashes of universes give rise to new cosmoses. The pattern repeats at every scale, whispering to us that circles may be the true geometry of time. Let this thought linger as the night deepens. The same cycles that give shape to stars give shape to us. Each inhale you take, each heartbeat, each turning of the earth beneath your feet, all are echoes of the same rhythm that governs galaxies. We are not outside of the cosmic cycles. We are the cycles, thinking, breathing, wondering. And so as we drift into stillness, the question remains. If stars remember themselves through their ashes, does the universe remember itself too? When it begins again, will it carry some trace of all that came before, just as we carry the stars in our bones? Imagine holding in your hands a piece of woven cloth. The threads run in parallel lines, warp and weft, crossing a surface both strong and flexible. Now stretch that fabric gently and see how it curves, how it folds. In its folds, some threads touch again, connecting distant parts of the weave. This simple textile becomes a metaphor for the universe itself, for space-time, the invisible fabric that underlies all things. Einstein's great insight was that space and time are not separate entities, but two strands of the same cloth woven together. Matter and energy do not merely exist within this fabric. They shape it, pulling and stretching it with their weight. A star bends space-time around it, like a heavy ball pressing into a trampoline. A black hole pulls so deeply that the threads funnel into a bottomless well. What we call gravity is simply the way objects follow the curves of this fabric, tracing its shape without ever seeing the weave itself. Now consider time not as a straight arrow, but as one of these threads. It runs through the cloth, interlacing with space, shaping the very structure of reality. When we walk forward, when we watch a planet orbit its star, we are following the thread of time as it curves and bends across the cosmic textile. But here is the question. If the fabric folds back upon itself, could time, too, loop back? Could the universe carry within it hidden circles, unseen repetitions woven into the very cloth of existence? Mathematicians imagine such possibilities with elegant precision. In certain geometries of space-time, known as closed time-like curves, the path of time bends in on itself. In such a universe, a traveler could follow their own timeline and eventually return to the point where they began. It is as if you walked across a great curved carpet, only to find yourself standing exactly where you started, not because you retraced your steps, but because the carpet itself curved beneath you. This vision transforms time from a line into a loop. It suggests that the story of the universe may not always be one of progress, but of return. Just as a pattern repeats in the weave of a tapestry, perhaps the fabric of space-time carries repeating motifs, loops of time, cycles of being, echoes that resurface like threads reappearing in the design. Physics often frames this idea in equations, but imagination gives it texture. Picture the universe as an immense quilt stitched with patterns of galaxies and stars. Within its folds lie recurring shapes, spirals that echo across billions of light years. Now extend that metaphor to time itself. What if the moment you are living now is not a singular thread, but part of a repeating motif woven deep into the cosmic fabric? What if existence itself is patterned, repeating its forms as faithfully as embroidery repeats its loops? These questions may seem fanciful, yet they rise naturally from our best theories. General relativity, the theory that describes space-time, does not forbid time from looping. It allows solutions where time bends back, where past and future are not separate but entangled. And quantum theory, with its shimmering probabilities and strange symmetries, sometimes hints that events may be less linear than they appear. Science, in its most daring visions, whispers that the tapestry may be richer than the straight threads we perceive. There is, of course, a tension here, for our daily lives tell us that time marches forward. The past cannot be undone, the future cannot yet be reached. We grow older, never younger. We remember yesterday, never tomorrow. Yet when we listen closely to the cosmos, it seems to tell a subtler story. Time's apparent arrow may be only part of the design, the visible foreground of a deeper pattern. Beneath it may lie loops, folds, and echoes, repeating motifs we cannot yet trace. And here is where the metaphor of weaving becomes most powerful. For in every tapestry, no thread exists alone. Each is entwined with others, crossing and recrossing to form the larger whole. Perhaps our own lives, our own histories, are like this too. Our moments may not vanish, but become part of a repeating pattern, resurfacing in ways we cannot see. In this view, memory itself is not just a property of the mind, but a reflection of the universe's fabric, threads recognizing their earlier crossings, patterns recalling themselves. Think of the way history seems to echo. Civilizations rise and fall, ideas recur in new guises, struggles repeat across generations. These are not closed, time-like curves in the strict physical sense, but they are reminders of repetition's quiet presence in reality. The cosmos may be whispering its nature through us, showing its loops not only in the geometry of space-time, but in the cycles of culture, of thought, of being. The image of time as a tapestry is comforting in its beauty, for it suggests that nothing is ever truly lost. A thread may vanish from sight as it dips into the weave, but it reappears again elsewhere, part of the larger design. So too with moments. What seems to slip into the past may not be gone at all. It may be hidden, folded, waiting to reappear in the pattern of eternity. As you imagine this cosmic textile, let yourself drift into its folds. See galaxies embroidered like luminous flowers, nebulae woven as colorful dyes, black holes stitched as deep knots in the cloth. And among these patterns, see also time itself, looping and curling, repeating motifs across the infinite expanse. You are not outside of this fabric. You are a thread within it, weaving in and out, adding your own shimmer to the whole. The thought lingers softly. If the fabric of the universe folds back upon itself, then every beginning may also be a return. Perhaps the future is not unknown, but a part of the pattern we have not yet traced. Perhaps we are not moving away from the past, but circling back toward it, following loops too vast for our brief lives to perceive. And so the question arises, almost like a whisper from the weave itself, if time is a tapestry, repeating its motifs again and again, then what part of the pattern are we? Are we a fleeting thread, or are we woven into a loop that has no true end? There is a thought experiment so haunting, so radical, that even today it unsettles the imagination. It does not come from a telescope or a laboratory, but from philosophy, more precisely, from the restless mind of Friedrich Nietzsche. He called it eternal recurrence. And in his vision, the cycles of the cosmos become something profoundly personal. Nietzsche asked us to imagine this. What if everything you have ever lived, every joy, every sorrow, every mistake, every triumph must be lived again? Not once, but endlessly. Each breath, each fleeting thought, each overlooked moment would return, not in memory, but in reality. Time would not be a river carrying you forward. It would be a wheel turning, always bringing you back at first. The idea can feel suffocating. To imagine reliving every heartbreak, every pain, every regret forever is almost unbearable. It casts life in a harsh, merciless light. Yet Nietzsche did not present it merely as despair. He saw it as a challenge, even a test. For he asked, if the universe is a circle without end, how should we live within it? Should we curse existence for its repetitions, or should we learn to embrace it so fully that we would welcome even its eternal return? Science, centuries later, whispers its own versions of loops, universes collapsing and rebirthing, time bending back on itself, patterns recurring across scales. But Nietzsche's recurrence brings those cosmic possibilities down to the level of the self. If matter cycles, if stars recycle, if universes themselves may repeat, then what of us? If the cosmos is trapped in cycles, so too are we, woven into the pattern. Imagine it for yourself. You wake tomorrow morning. The sunlight through the window is exactly as it was before. The sounds outside are the same. You brush your teeth, eat your breakfast, step into your day, and somewhere, perhaps in another cycle, perhaps in another universe, the same you is doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts, unaware that this moment is not the first, but the millionth time. And the question is not whether this is true, but how you feel if it is. Would you despair, knowing that nothing you do is new, that novelty itself is an illusion? Or would you embrace it, saying yes to existence so completely that you would live it again and again without hesitation? Nietzsche suggested that the greatness of a life is measured not by its uniqueness, but by the depth of our affirmation. To live a life you would gladly repeat eternally, that is the challenge. In this sense, eternal recurrence is both terrifying and liberating. It strips away the fantasy of escape. There is no other world, no final reward, no end to suffering. There is only this life, this moment, this circle. And within that realization lies a hidden strength. If you cannot escape, you must embrace. If the wheel turns forever, then every instant becomes infinitely important. Every choice echoes across eternity. Science, of course, does not require such philosophy. It speaks in equations, not affirmations. And yet the parallels are striking. Cyclic cosmology suggests that universes repeat. Thermodynamics suggests that matter and energy transform but are never destroyed. The very atoms of your body have been part of countless lives before you and will be part of countless lives after. Even without Nietzsche's metaphysics, recurrence is written into the fabric of existence. Think of your breath. You inhale oxygen that once drifted through the lungs of animals long gone, molecules that were once part of oceans, glaciers, forests, stars. You exhale carbon that will be taken up by plants, by oceans, by future beings. Each breath is not unique. It is part of a rhythm, a loop that binds you to the cosmos. In this way, recurrence is not abstract philosophy, but daily experience. Nietzsche's genius was to turn this into a question of meaning. If recurrence is real, then how should we live? His challenge is not about the cosmos, but about the soul. To affirm existence in its entirety, not just the sweet, but also the bitter, not just the triumphs, but also the wounds, that, he believed, is the ultimate strength. To say yes to life as it is, knowing it will return, is to embrace existence fully, without reservation. As you sit with this thought, notice how it softens into something more intimate. Eternal recurrence is not only about the vast cycles of stars and universes, it is also about the patterns of our own lives. We repeat ourselves constantly in habits, in relationships, in mistakes, in joys. The same conversations resurface, the same struggles reappear in new forms. Even within one lifetime, we live echoes of ourselves. Perhaps Nietzsche was not only speaking of cosmology, but of psychology, the loops within our own hearts. And so the challenge is not just philosophical, but practical. Can you live in such a way that if this very day repeated forever, you would embrace it? Could you find beauty not only in great moments, but in small ones, the sip of tea, the softness of a blanket, the quiet sound of rain? Eternal recurrence teaches us to see each instant as infinite, each detail as essential. For if it will return endlessly, it deserves our full attention now. As you drift deeper into this reflection, imagine the wheel of time turning silently above you. Galaxies rotate, stars cycle, universes may collapse and ignite again. And within this vast machinery, you live your life, one breath at a time. Each action you take, no matter how small, ripples outward, repeating across the circle. And perhaps the measure of a good life is not to escape the wheel, but to ride it willingly, even joyfully. Nietzsche leaves us with a question more unsettling than any scientific theory. If all of this must return, how will you respond? With resentment or with affirmation? With despair or with a resounding yes? For in the end, eternal recurrence is less a claim about the universe and more a mirror held up to the soul. And as you gaze into that mirror, the universe itself seems to whisper, if everything returns, will you embrace the circle or will you resist? When we leave behind the vast galaxies and step into the smallest realms of nature, the universe begins to whisper in stranger tones. Here, At the quantum scale, reality itself bends into patterns that defy our intuition. Particles appear and vanish. They blur between states. They seem to reset themselves, as if beneath the surface of reality. Repetition is not the exception, but the rule. Physicists describe this realm with equations, but the behavior of particles often feels more like a riddle than a law. One moment, an electron behaves like a particle, fixed and countable. The next, it spreads like a wave, rippling through space. Sometimes it does both at once, and when observed, it collapses back into a definite state, as though reality itself is cyclical, oscillating between possibilities and outcomes. This is where the whispers begin. At the foundations of the universe, change is not always linear. Quantum states can repeat, reset, recur. They oscillate in predictable rhythms, governed by probabilities that circle back again and again. And so the smallest building blocks of existence seem to hum in cycles, even as the larger universe appears to rush forward. Consider the quantum harmonic oscillator, a system as simple as a vibrating atom or a photon trapped in a box of mirrors. Its states are not random, but layered like notes on a scale, each separated by regular intervals. When it shifts from one state to another, it does so in patterns that repeat endlessly. Energy is not a straight line stretching to infinity. It is quantized, stepped, circular, or think of quantum spin. A particle's spin is not rotation in space, but an intrinsic property, yet when measured, it flips between values like a coin caught in perpetual motion. If you rotate a quantum particle by 360 degrees, it does not return to its original state. Only at 720 degrees, a full double turn, does it come back. Here again is the rhythm of recurrence, written in the very mathematics of being. And then there is entanglement, where two particles, separated by vast distances, echo each other's states instantly. It is as if they share a loop, a hidden connection, so that what happens to one recurs in the other. The cycle does not belong to one alone, it binds them together. At this scale, time itself begins to shimmer. In quantum mechanics, the passage of time is often described not as a smooth flow, but as oscillations of probability. Particles do not march forward, they waver like a candle flame in the wind, flickering between possibilities. Sometimes, after long periods, quantum systems return almost exactly to their starting point. These are called Poincaré recurrences, where the random dance of particles eventually retraces its own steps. In the tiniest corners of existence, even randomness bends toward repetition. What does this mean for us, who live far above the quantum sea? It may mean that cyclicality is not an invention of philosophy or myth, but a property of the universe itself. The same mathematics that governs the smallest scales also gives rise to the larger rhythms of stars, galaxies, and perhaps even time itself. The circle, it seems, may be inscribed at every level of reality, and yet there is a mystery. For while quantum mechanics suggests recurrence, it also holds unpredictability at its core. Each observation collapses a wave function. Each measurement selects from possibilities. It is as though the universe circles endlessly, yet never quite steps into the same footprint twice. The repetition is never perfect, but it is always present, like echoes in a canyon, fading and returning, never identical, but always familiar. Some physicists wonder, could the strange loops of quantum mechanics be the seeds of cosmic recurrence? If particles themselves are bound to cycles, might the universe built from those particles also inherit that cyclical nature? Perhaps the endless birth and death of stars, the possible collapse and rebirth of universes, are not accidents of scale but expressions of a deeper law, one whispered first at the quantum level. Others suggest that time itself may not be fundamental, that at the quantum foundation there is only a web of relationships, a timeless state, out of which cycles emerge when we observe. If so, then recurrence is not simply a property of matter, but of perception. Time loops not because the universe requires it, but because our minds carve cycles into a reality that is, at its heart, beyond time. These are only glimpses, fragile interpretations of equations that are still not fully understood, but they remind us of something profound. At its core, the universe resists being a line. It prefers circles, oscillations, returns. From the smallest particle to the grandest galaxy, recurrence is stitched into the pattern. As you reflect on this, imagine the quantum whispers at work within you. Every atom in your body obeys these laws. The electrons in your nerves hum in quantum states. The photons entering your eyes vibrate in cycles. The molecules of your breath oscillate between patterns of possibility. Even as you sit quietly, listening, your existence is a song of recurrence, playing softly, endlessly. And so the boundary between the philosophical and the physical blurs once more. The cycle is not only a metaphor for human life or a speculation about the universe at large, it is a truth already present in the smallest whispers of being. Perhaps when Nietzsche spoke of eternal recurrence, when mythologies told of cosmic cycles, they were reaching towards something that physics, in its own language, has begun to glimpse. In the end, quantum mechanics does not give us certainty. It gives us patterns, probabilities, whispers. But within those whispers is a rhythm, a suggestion that at the foundation of reality, nothing is ever lost, only transformed, reset, repeated. And maybe that is enough to know that even in the most mysterious depths of the universe, the circle returns. At the center of almost every galaxy there is a shadow, a region where light itself cannot escape, where gravity bends space-time so severely that even time slows to a near halt. We call them black holes, and for decades we thought of them as the ultimate full stop, cosmic devourers, swallowing matter, energy, and information forever. Yet in recent years, black holes have begun to whisper a different story. Not just destroyers, but recyclers. Not just ends, but strange beginnings. To approach a black hole is to approach mystery. Imagine drifting toward its event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing can return. From a distance, time appears to stretch endlessly. A falling star, a drifting particle, even you yourself would seem to freeze in place, caught at the threshold. To an outside observer, nothing ever crosses. And yet, from the perspective of what falls in, the plunge is swift, unstoppable, and complete. Two realities unfolding side by side, stillness and motion, pause and plunge. Once inside, the rules as we know them collapse. The singularity, a point of infinite density, awaits where the equations of physics break down. For decades, scientists believed this was the end of the story, the place where information was erased, where matter was ground into nothing. But nature is rarely so absolute. The more we peer into black holes, the more we see not only destruction, but the possibility of renewal. Stephen Hawking famously proposed that black holes are not entirely black. They glow faintly with what we now call Hawking radiation, a quantum leakage that slowly drains their mass over eons. In this slow evaporation, black holes give back what they take, though not in their original form, but as transformed whispers of energy. If you wait long enough, even the largest black hole will vanish into a final sigh of light. And then comes the paradox. Information. Physics insists that information about a system, the arrangement of particles, the record of their states, cannot be destroyed. But if black holes swallow everything, where does that information go? Does it vanish into the singularity? Or is it smeared across the event horizon itself, stored like grooves on a cosmic record? This is the famous information paradox, a puzzle that has forced physicists to rethink the very foundations of reality. One idea is that the surface of the black hole encodes everything that falls inside, like a two-dimensional projection of a three-dimensional story. If true, this would mean the universe itself is holographic, every moment recorded on invisible surfaces, waiting to be read. Another idea is that black holes are not the end of matter, but gateways to somewhere else, portals through which energy and information slip into another universe entirely. What appears as annihilation on one side may be creation on another. Here the cycle of destruction and rebirth takes on its most dramatic form. Imagine that inside every black hole lies the seed of a new cosmos. The collapse of matter does not erase it, but compresses it to such density that it erupts into expansion, its own Big Bang, unseen by us, but perhaps the birth of another universe. In this way, our universe could itself be the child of a black hole in some parent cosmos, and the black holes in our universe could be birthing universes of their own. The cycle is not metaphorical, it is architectural, a self-replicating pattern of creation. This possibility invites a strange reflection. If universes give birth to universes through black holes, then perhaps the constants of physics are shaped by survival. Universes that form black holes go on to reproduce, while those without them fade away. In such a view, black holes are not cosmic accidents, but engines of continuity, recycling reality across infinite generations. Even within our own universe, black holes recycle matter in profound ways. As they devour gas and stars, they release energy through violent jets, beams of particles that stream across space at near light speed. These outflows seed galaxies with energy, stir clouds of gas, and trigger new waves of star formation. Without black holes, galaxies might collapse or stagnate. With them, galaxies breathe, consuming, releasing, renewing. The destruction they bring is inseparable from the creation they inspire, and so black holes blur the line between end and beginning. They remind us that death in the cosmos is never absolute. Matter falls, light vanishes, information is tangled, and yet something always returns. Even the darkest silence radiates softly over time. Even the deepest collapse may give rise to expansion elsewhere. As you reflect on this, consider your own breath. With every exhale, something leaves you, invisible and unseen. With every inhale, something enters, unseen but essential. You recycle the air of the planet, which recycles the stardust of long-dead stars, which was once scattered by supernovae, themselves fueled by the collapse of earlier generations. Inhaling and exhaling, giving and receiving, dying and being reborn. On every scale, the cycle repeats. What then is a black hole, if not the most profound exhalation and inhalation of the universe? It consumes, it releases. It ends, it begins. It erases, it encodes. It silences, it whispers. And perhaps beyond its dark horizon, it dreams of new universes, carrying the memory of this one into another dawn. We often fear black holes because they seem final, but perhaps we misunderstand them. Perhaps they are not tombs but wombs, not prisons but gateways. And if so, then the looping universe does not need to be imagined only in cycles of expansion and collapse across trillions of years. It may already be happening quietly, secretly, in the heart of every galaxy, where the darkest shadows are also the most fertile grounds for renewal. As you let this thought settle, imagine the possibility that our own universe is not the first nor the last, that it was born through the recycling of another, carried through the eye of a black hole, and that within our universe countless others may already be waiting, hidden inside the horizons we cannot cross. Each black hole a seed, each seed a world, each world another chance for stars, for life, for wonder. And so, when you gaze into the night sky and see the stars clustered around invisible centers, remember that you are also looking into the engines of eternity. What seems like an end may be the start of something vast. What feels like silence may be the prelude to a song. Black holes, in their quiet gravity, may be whispering the deepest truth of all. Nothing is ever truly lost. Everything is recycled. Everything returns. But if black holes recycle and renew, if they are seeds as much as they are graves, then a question arises. Who or what tends this garden of universes? Is the cycle blind and mechanical, or is it shaped by deeper laws we do not yet understand? Are we watching only the surface ripples of an ocean too deep to fathom? The universe does not answer. It only shows us shadows and whispers, endings that feel like beginnings, darkness that hides creation. And as we drift forward into the next thought, the mystery lingers. If black holes are portals, then where do they lead? And could we ever follow? When you look into a mirror, you see yourself, but not quite yourself. The reflection feels familiar, yet reversed. The right becomes left, the left becomes right. And though the image mimics every gesture, you know it is not truly you. The universe too may hold such reflections. Perhaps ours is not the only cosmos, but one among countless others, some like mirrors, some entirely alien, each looping in its own mysterious rhythm. The question of the multiverse stretches the imagination to its limits. If the universe is vast beyond comprehension, why stop at one? If the rules of physics allow countless beginnings, why assume we live in the only story? To some scientists, the multiverse arises naturally from equations. To others, it is philosophy dressed in physics. Yet whether real or imagined, the idea of many universes echoes ancient whispers of eternal recurrence, the thought that everything repeats endlessly, across infinite variations. One version of the multiverse begins with inflation, the rapid expansion thought to have followed the Big Bang. In this view, the fabric of space-time did not inflate evenly. Some regions expanded into universes like ours, while others kept stretching, birthing new universes continuously. Each bubble forms its own cosmos, sealed off from the rest. If this is true, then our universe is only one bubble in an eternal froth of countless others. Some may burn quickly, collapsing into silence. Others may thrive, birthing stars, galaxies, and life. The cycle does not belong to one universe, but to the multiverse itself, a garden where each seed grows differently. But there is another, stranger possibility, that the multiverse is not infinite diversity, but infinite repetition. Imagine space so vast and particles so finite that every possible arrangement must eventually recur. Somewhere, unimaginably far away, there may be a universe identical to ours, where you are listening to these very words, in the same chair, in the same breath. And farther still, another, and another. In this vision, eternal recurrence is not only philosophical, but physical. The universe is not just looping forward in time, but outward in space. The mirror is not a single reflection, but a hall of infinite reflections, each slightly offset, some identical. This thought is both comforting and disquieting. Comforting because nothing is ever truly lost. Every moment, every life, every dream repeats somewhere, sometime. Disquieting because it asks, are we free or are we trapped in endless rehearsals of the same play? If everything recurs, is choice real or only an illusion repeated forever? And then comes yet another idea, the mirror universe. Some physicists propose that our universe may be paired with a twin, unfolding in reverse. In this mirror, cosmos, time runs backward. Entropy decreases instead of increases, and what we call the Big Bang may be the meeting point of two universes moving in opposite directions. Our future is its past, and its past is our future. We may never see it directly, but its presence could explain puzzles of symmetry and balance in the laws of physics. Here the cycle takes on a new shape. It is not only expansion and collapse, but reflection. Our universe is not isolated, but part of a larger symmetry, a dance of two realities entwined. Like yin and yang, they define each other by contrast, forward and backward, order and disorder, matter and antimatter. The mirror is not a copy, but a complement, completing the circle. Philosophers have long asked whether eternity is diversity or repetition. Is the infinite a canvas of endless possibilities, or is it a mirror that insists on sameness? Nietzsche's eternal recurrence imagined an exact return of every detail, while Hindu cosmology imagined vast cycles of creation and destruction, each slightly different. Modern physics stands between these visions, unable to decide, are we in an endless multiverse of difference, or in a single loop of identity? And perhaps the truth is both. Imagine a great library, infinite in size. Each book tells the story of a universe. Some books are wildly different. Alien laws of physics, strange geometries, colors of matter we cannot imagine. But scattered among them are identical copies of your own story. And not just one copy, but infinitely many, written in the same ink, word for word, breath for breath. You walk through the library, pulling volumes from shelves, and realize both diversity and repetition are infinite. The cycle is not either or, it is all. As you breathe with this thought, notice how your own life echoes it. Some days feel new, unpredictable, filled with possibility. Others feel like mirrors, repetitions of routines, conversations you've had before, moments that seem to loop back. Within your own existence, the multiverse and the mirror coexist. You are both novelty and recurrence, both change and return. The question then is not whether we are trapped in cycles or freed by variety. It is how we respond. If you were told your life would repeat endlessly, exactly as it is, would you embrace it fully? Would you find peace in recurrence, joy in knowing every moment returns? Or would you despair, wishing for escape? If instead you were told that infinite versions of you live in countless universes, each making different choices, would that free you, or would it diminish the meaning of this one path you walk? The multiverse stretches science into philosophy, and philosophy back into science. It offers both a mirror of sameness and an ocean of difference. And in both there is a kind of recycling. Nothing is ever truly lost. Every possibility exists. Every moment repeats. The universe, or universes, are a vast hall of mirrors, some bright, some dim, some exact, some distorted. Together they form a cycle without end. As you let this reflection settle, consider the possibility that your life, right now, is both unique and eternal. Unique because no perspective is ever repeated in quite the same way. Eternal because in the vastness of possibility, it will always return. You are both a single breath and an infinite echo. And so the question lingers in the quiet. Are we living in a multiverse of endless differences, or walking in a mirror that reflects us forever? Perhaps we are both, travelers in an infinite library, readers of a single page that repeats across endless volumes. The universe does not answer. It only shows us reflections, leaving us to wonder. When you look into the cosmic mirror, do you see yourself? Or do you see another world looking back? Imagine for a moment that the stars above you, the ground beneath your feet, even your own thoughts, are not what they seem. Suppose reality itself is a simulation, a grand design, intricate and invisible, running on some unfathomable substrate beyond our reach. If this were true, then perhaps the loops we glimpse in physics and philosophy are not accidents of nature, but artifacts of design. Like a video game that repeats levels, or a program that cycles through its code, the universe might be looping because it is written that way. The idea of a simulated reality is not new. Philosophers have long toyed with the notion that the world is not the ultimate ground of being, but a shadow, a dream, an imitation. Plato spoke of a cave where prisoners mistake flickering shadows for reality. Descartes wondered if a deceiver could be feeding us illusions. Today, those ancient questions are dressed in digital metaphors, computer code, processors, simulations. What was once mystical is now technological. Nick Bostrom, a contemporary philosopher, framed the question starkly. If civilizations ever develop the ability to run perfect simulations of reality, they might create not just one, but countless simulated worlds. And if such worlds vastly outnumber base reality, then the odds suggest that we are more likely to be inside a simulation than outside it. In this view, loops are not just probable, they are inevitable. Programs repeat. Algorithms recycle. Memory reloads. Think of a video game. You step into a world where the environment is bounded, the characters scripted, the story replayable. Each time you play, the same beginning unfolds. Each time you lose, the level restarts. Loops are built into the very structure of the game. Now imagine a universe designed this way. Stars form and collapse. Life arises and fades. Civilizations bloom and vanish, then the cycle resets. Not because of entropy or gravity, but because that is how the program is written. In such a universe, recurrence is not only physical or philosophical, it is computational. Each cycle is a rerun of code, each moment a frame rendered by the processor. And perhaps, just as glitches in video games sometimes reveal the hidden scaffolding, the strange symmetries and recurrences of our universe are hints of the architecture behind the illusion. Some thinkers point to mathematics as the strongest clue. Why should the universe be so perfectly described by equations, so orderly, so elegant? Why should quantum fields, space-time geometry, and thermodynamic laws all resolve into patterns that can be written on a chalkboard? If reality is simulated, then mathematics is not a discovery but the source code itself. Equations are the programming language of being, and loops are the natural consequence of any code that runs long enough. Others suggest that the recurrence we sense in our lives, the déjà vu, the strange familiarity of places we've never been, the feeling that we've lived moments before, could be echoes of reloaded sequences, fragments of memory carried across cycles. Science cannot confirm these intuitions, but within the frame of simulation, they become poetic possibilities. Perhaps when you dream, you brush against the edges of the code, wandering through loops that lie beneath waking reality. Yet even if the universe is a simulation, the question remains. Why loops? Why not a program that runs endlessly forward, never repeating? One answer may be efficiency. Loops are economical. They allow complexity to emerge from repetition, richness to arise from cycles. In software, loops reduce the need for infinite code. They recycle instructions, creating vast possibilities from finite rules. In a simulated universe, loops could serve the same purpose, allowing infinity to be generated from simplicity. Another answer lies in design. If the simulator wished to test choices, to observe variations, to let beings relive their lives under slightly different conditions, then loops would be essential. Each replay would be a new experiment, each recurrence a new data point. From our perspective, it might feel like fate or destiny. From theirs, it would be testing, learning, refining. But even in a simulation, recurrence does not rob life of meaning. Consider a song played on repeat. Each time, the notes are the same, yet each listening feels different. The context changes, your emotions shift, the meaning deepens. A loop is not a prison if it is experienced with awareness. It can be an invitation to hear more, to live more, to notice more. And so if reality is a simulation, if the cycles we observe are signatures of design, the question becomes not only whether we are trapped, but how we choose to live within the loop. Do we despair at the repetition, or do we embrace it as part of a larger architecture, one that may hold mysteries beyond our comprehension? Perhaps the most profound thought is this: even if the universe is a simulation, even if loops are written into its very fabric, the experience remains real. The laughter of a child, the warmth of the sun, the ache of loss, the wonder of discovery, these are not lessened by their possible artificiality. To live in a loop is still to live. To love in a simulation is still to love. And if loops are indeed the signature of design, then perhaps they are also an invitation. An invitation to look more closely, to listen more deeply, to sense the structure beneath the surface. Just as a repeated melody draws us into its layers, the looping of the universe may be drawing us closer to the hidden truth of existence. As you sit with this thought, the quiet question lingers. If reality is simulated, then who is the player? Who is the observer beyond the code? And if loops are inevitable in such a design, then perhaps infinity itself is not endless time, but endless return. Picture the turning of a wheel so immense, so slow, that by the time it completes a single revolution, every mark of its passage has faded away. Imagine cycles so vast that even memory itself cannot survive them. The universe collapses and begins again, yet no echo carries forward, no message persists. What would such a recurrence mean? if the cycle erases all traces of itself? Would we still call it a loop if nothing within remembers? We humans are creatures of memory. Our sense of self depends on it. We remember our childhood, the faces of loved ones, the places we've been. History itself is a form of collective memory, a story societies tell themselves to give continuity, to tether the present to the past. Without memory, both personal and cosmic, we drift untethered. Time becomes a series of moments, isolated and unconnected, like beads scattered without a thread. So when we speak of cycles of the universe, we instinctively imagine continuity. The stars that die give birth to new stars. The dust of old worlds becomes the seed of new ones. Perhaps even our own atoms carry within them the memory of ancient explosions, of galaxies that lived and perished before us. But what if the loop is absolute? What if, when the universe resets, nothing endures, no matter, no energy, no law, no story? In such a scenario, the next universe would not remember the last. There would be no scars of previous cycles, no cosmic fossils. It would be a clean slate, as if the past had never been. From inside, beings like us would never know that anything had come before. For all practical purposes, each cycle would be the first. This thought blurs the line between loop and line. If recurrence carries no memory, is it truly recurrence at all? Or is it simply a succession of beginnings, each indistinguishable from the last, each unaware of its own place in a hidden sequence? A loop that forgets itself behaves like a straight path, endlessly starting over. To the traveler, it feels like progress. Only from the outside, beyond memory, would the circle reveal itself. Some physicists have toyed with this very idea. In models where the universe contracts into a singularity and expands again, the conditions of the new expansion might bear no imprint of the one before. No information could cross the boundary. Each Big Bang would be an absolute origin. The cycle is there, but it is sealed, self-contained, self-erasing. The universe forgets its former self completely. This forgetting is not only cosmic, it is personal. Every night in dreams, fragments of our waking lives dissolve. Every lifetime, memories fade into dust. Cultures rise and fall, carrying their histories with them into oblivion. On smaller scales, we already live in a world where forgetting is as powerful as remembering. If memory is fragile even within a single lifespan, why expect it to endure across cycles of eternity? And yet, the idea of cycles without memory stirs a paradox. If no memory persists, how can we even say cycles exist? A loop requires repetition, but repetition is only visible if something remains constant to mark the return. Without memory, each universe may as well be unique, unconnected. The pattern may exist, but it is hidden from all who dwell within. Perhaps that is the nature of deep time, cycles so immense that they are invisible, imperceptible, like the slow turning of galaxies or the drifting of continents. You cannot see the wheel turn while standing on it. You cannot perceive the loop while living inside it. You can only imagine it from the stillness beyond. Philosophically, this raises unsettling questions. If the universe forgets each cycle, then what of meaning? Nietzsche's eternal recurrence asked us to imagine reliving our lives again and again, with memory intact, a challenge to affirm existence despite its weight. But if recurrence comes with forgetting, then the challenge dissolves. Each cycle is lived as though it were the first. There is no burden of repetition, no responsibility to embrace or reject the eternal return. There is only now, singular and self-contained. From one perspective, this forgetting could be a mercy. To carry the memory of countless universes might be unbearable. Imagine remembering not only every moment of your own life, but every death of stars, every extinction, every collapse. Memory on such a scale could crush us. Forgetting is what allows freshness, what permits wonder, what makes experience bearable. Each dawn feels like a new beginning because we cannot feel the infinite weight of the dawns that came before. From another perspective, forgetting is a kind of loss. It robs recurrence of its texture. If nothing survives, then perhaps all we can truly say is that existence happens. Beyond that, the loop is a mystery, real perhaps, but unknowable. Still, there may be hints. Even if memory does not survive whole, perhaps traces leak through. Just as dreams leave faint impressions on waking life, perhaps universes leave faint imprints on their successors, subtle patterns in cosmic background radiation, mysterious constants of nature, strange symmetries in mathematics. These could be the universe's way of half-remembering itself, like a scar tissue of eternity, and on a human scale, perhaps déjà vu, archetypes, or the universal rhythms of myth and story are echoes, not direct memories, but resonances of forgotten cycles, a fragment of a melody, not the whole song. If so, then even in forgetting, something whispers across time. But whether we remember or not, the loop continues. Forgetting does not end the cycle. It only veils it. The wheel still turns, even if those who ride upon it never know. Perhaps this is the true nature of eternity, not an endless replay we are cursed to endure, but an endless renewal we are blessed never to tire of. For in the absence of memory, each cycle is new, each life a first chance, each sunrise the beginning of the world. If forgetting is woven into the fabric of time, then perhaps it is not erasure, but grace. The loop is there, but it is hidden so that we may live as though the present is all that matters. And so the question lingers softly. If time itself forgets, are we trapped in recurrence, or freed from it? Perhaps the answer is both, that forgetting is what makes eternity livable and what makes each moment precious. Breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. Already within the simplest act of life, you are living the ancient rhythm of return. Breath is a cycle, a loop in miniature, reminding you that every end folds into a beginning, every release becomes a renewal. When we gaze outward at the grand cosmologies of recurrence, the endless returns of universes, we are also gazing inward at the small, soft repetitions that sustain us. The great circle of the cosmos and the quiet circle of your lungs are not separate. They are reflections of one another, mirrors turned toward infinity. The looping universe is often described in equations and theories, in models of expansion and collapse, in probabilities of renewal. But beneath those scientific garments lies a language more ancient, metaphor. Humanity has always reached for images to express what it cannot fully grasp. We imagine the universe as a wheel, a serpent swallowing its own tail, a tide that falls only to rise again. These images are not literal, but they are true in another way. They carry the poetry of return, a way of feeling the cosmos rather than dissecting it. Consider the cycle of seasons. Each spring feels new, yet it carries the memory of all springs before it. Flowers bloom, not for the first time, but in a dance that repeats with slight variations. And so too with human hearts. Joy fades and returns, sorrow deepens and softens, love wanes and rekindles. You might call it recurrence, or simply life unfolding in patterns. The cosmos expands and contracts, stars ignite and extinguish, but at a human scale the same pulse is echoed in the way a mother soothes a child, in the way music rises and falls, in the way morning always follows night. There is comfort in this. To see yourself as part of a great return is to feel less alone, less fleeting. When grief comes, it arrives not as a permanent exile, but as one passage in a greater rhythm. When love fades, it does not mean it is lost forever, only that it has stepped into the arc of return, waiting to rise again in another form, another season. The poetics of return tell us that nothing is wasted, that even the most fragile moment may find a way to circle back. And yet there is also mystery. A cycle is never quite the same twice. Your breath now is not the same as the breath before. The seasons repeat, but the spring you witness today carries a light, a warmth, a configuration of clouds that has never existed before and never will again. The universe may loop, but even in its return, novelty is born. The wheel does not merely trace a circle, it spirals, creating newness with each revolution. This paradox of sameness and difference, of return and renewal, is the poetry of time itself. Think of memory. A thought returns, but altered. The way you recall a childhood place is never identical to the way you experienced it then. Memory is cyclical, but also transformative. So too with the cosmos. If there are cycles of universes, they may not be perfect copies. Perhaps each cycle writes a variation of the same melody, a cosmic improvisation on eternal themes. The Big Bang plays out again, but the stars arrange themselves differently, the galaxies spin into new shapes, and life finds unfamiliar paths. Eternity is not a frozen loop, but a living pattern, like music that repeats without ever exhausting itself. Poets have long known this truth. They describe love as waves that ebb and return, history as a wheel, the heart as a pendulum. What science models with entropy and expansion, poetry renders in rhythm and metaphor. Both ways of knowing converge on the same insight. Existence is woven into cycles. To live is to participate in these returns, to surrender to them, and perhaps even to find beauty in their inevitability. Your own life is a tapestry of cycles. The way you wake each day, the way hunger rises and falls, the way laughter bursts and fades. Even your thoughts loop back, revisiting the same questions, the same longings, the same shadows. But notice how the loops are never prisons. They are invitations. Each time a question returns, you can hear it differently. Each time a longing revisits, you can respond with more tenderness. Each cycle offers a chance to see the same truth from a new angle. This is the quiet gift of return. And when you imagine the universe itself caught in such rhythms, the self and the cosmos begin to blur. You are not apart from the cycles of galaxies, you are a miniature of them. The atoms in your body once cycled through stars. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, all were forged in stellar furnaces and released in cosmic deaths, only to find their way into you. Your very being is a poem of return, a stanza written in the language of cycles. To recognize this is to see the universe not as something distant, but as something intimate. You are its echo, and it is yours. There is also a deeper, quieter poetry, the cycle of loss and remembrance. Each time we lose someone we love, it feels like an ending beyond repair. And yet, over time, memory transforms loss into presence. The one you grieve becomes part of you in new ways. Their absence returns as influence, as story, as tenderness in your own heart. Loss too has its cycles, not of erasure, but of transformation. Perhaps the universe itself grieves and remembers in similar patterns, folding its endings into beginnings we cannot yet see. If the cosmos is truly a great return, then perhaps love itself is eternal. Not eternal in a static sense, frozen and unchanging, but eternal in rhythm, in renewal. Each act of kindness returns in another. Each word of love ripples outward, finding new forms. In this way, your smallest gestures participate in the great cosmic cycle. The universe is not only physics unfolding, it is also poetry, written in your breath, your heartbeat, your choices. To live with awareness of return is to live with humility. You recognize that you are not the beginning or the end, but part of an unfolding pattern. You are a note in a song older than stars, destined to fade, destined also to return in some form beyond your knowing. And in that recognition comes peace. The anxiety of endings softens because you begin to see endings not as final, but as arcs within a larger melody. So breathe again. Feel the return. Inhale, exhale. The universe is doing the same in vast measures of time beyond comprehension. Expansion and contraction, ignition and silence, beginning and ending, all woven together into one tapestry of return. You are inside it and you are it. The poetry of the cosmos is not apart from you, it is you. And as you let this thought settle, one question remains. If everything returns, not only matter and energy, but also love, grief, and wonder, what would it mean to live as though nothing is ever truly lost? We arrive now at the quiet threshold, the place where all our wondering leads us. We have traced myths and sciences, followed stars through their lives, entered the strange spaces of black holes and the fragile mathematics of recurrence. We have stood among ancient philosophers and modern physicists alike, listening as they each describe the shape of eternity. And now we stand together at the edge of the loop itself, gazing into its silent curve, wondering, is this the true shape of time? At the very beginning of this journey, I welcomed you into Late Night Science. I asked where you were listening from, and in my imagination I saw you somewhere in the quiet of your own evening, perhaps with the hum of a city outside your window, perhaps with crickets singing in the distance. Some of you may have been lying down, closing your eyes, using these words as a soft guide towards sleep. Others may have been awake deep into the night, holding questions that would not let you rest. To all of you, I say thank you for walking this long road with me, for giving your mind and heart to this unfolding meditation. The question of loops has always been more than scientific. To ask whether the universe returns again and again is also to ask about ourselves, our lives, our choices, our hopes. If the cosmos is caught in an endless cycle, then so too are we. Every breath we take, every moment of joy or sorrow, every act of kindness or cruelty, each would come again, endlessly. Some find this terrifying. Some find it comforting. Perhaps the truth is that it is both, and that our task is to hold both feelings in balance, the way day holds night, the way beginnings hold endings. Think for a moment of the arrow of time, the scientific picture of disorder increasing, entropy spreading, the cosmos running forward like sand through an hourglass. It paints a universe that seems to rush toward heat death, toward a future where all is quiet and dark. Yet alongside this arrow, we have seen the circle, the possibility that what falls will rise, that what ends will begin again. Two visions, two metaphors, both standing before us. Which is truer? Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps the universe is more mysterious than any metaphor can hold. And here, standing at this edge, I invite you to imagine both at once. Imagine that time is both arrow and circle, that it shoots forward but in a path that curves, eventually looping back, like a comet that races away into the cold, only to turn and return once more. To live inside such a cosmos is to live inside paradox, moving forward and returning, ending and beginning, forgetting and remembering. Does this not sound in some way like the life you already know? Think of your own days. They move forward, each morning a new one, each year a step ahead. Yet within that movement lies return. The sun rises in familiar arcs, the seasons cycle, your own habits and memories repeat in loops. You are both arrow and circle, so perhaps the universe itself is the same. And what of the grandest question? If eternity is a circle, what does it mean to live inside it again and again? It means perhaps that your life is not disposable, that every gesture echoes endlessly. That kindness is not a fleeting act, but a thread woven back into the fabric of eternity. That cruelty, too, lingers, not as punishment, but as repetition. To imagine eternity as recurrence is to take life seriously, to hold it with reverence. Nietzsche once asked if you could embrace your life so fully that you would live it again and again forever. Tonight, standing at the edge of the loop, that question becomes ours. But we must also acknowledge the other possibility, that there is no loop, no return, only a forward flow. And even here, there is poetry. For if life happens only once, then each moment is infinitely precious, unrepeatable, a singular gift. Whether the universe cycles endlessly or runs forward into silence, Both visions ask the same of us: to live with awareness, with gratitude, with tenderness toward the fragile now. Perhaps this is the secret that all cosmologies share. Whether they speak of cycles or arrows, myths or mathematics, they remind us that life is larger than we imagine, and yet intimate, immediate, already here. The stars return in their rhythms, the galaxies drift in their slow dance, and you, listening now, are part of that same unfolding. So as this journey draws to a close, I return to you. Where are you now? What sounds fill the room around you? What thoughts linger in your mind? Wherever you are, know that you are held inside the great pattern we have been exploring. You are inside the cosmos, and the cosmos is inside you. Whether time is a circle or an arrow, whether universes repeat or dissolve, this much is certain. You are here, now, alive within the mystery. Let us pause together in silence and feel that. Feel the breath that comes and goes, the rhythm of your own body echoing the rhythm of the stars. Feel the way memory returns, the way thought loops back, the way love itself never truly disappears but finds new forms. This is the poetics of return. This is the edge of the loop. And now, softly, I offer my thanks. Thank you for joining this journey through myth and science, through philosophy and wonder. Thank you for bringing your curiosity into this quiet corner of the night. Thank you for giving yourself the time to wonder about questions that may never have answers, but that nonetheless carry their own kind of peace. For curiosity itself is a form of peace. It is the mind's way of breathing, expanding and contracting, searching and returning. If you have found comfort or inspiration here, I invite you gently to stay connected. Subscribe if you wish so that we may continue these journeys together. Share if you feel called, so that others too may join us in this contemplative space. And let me know, as I asked at the beginning, where you are listening from, for it is a wonder to know how far these questions travel. How many hearts sit quietly under the same stars, asking the same things? The night is long and the universe longer still. Whether you close your eyes now and drift into sleep, or whether you stay awake a little longer with these thoughts, may you feel the gentle presence of the cosmos around you. May you feel yourself woven into its patterns, not as an outsider looking in, but as part of the very fabric of time itself. And so we end, not with an answer, but with a question left to linger. If eternity is a circle, what does it mean to live inside it again and again? Rest well, traveler. The universe waits, and so does tomorrow's light. Until we meet again, may your curiosity carry you like a quiet star through the night.